Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. You're also smart. It's also the name of the show. You're also smart. And you knew, and I knew, and we all fucking knew that this Phillies team was going to do exactly what they did. A Game 4 loss, a game that the Phillies very well could have and probably should have won, a game that should have likely forced a Game 5 back in Philadelphia in front of a fan base that would have absolutely loved the opportunity to go out and cheer for this team one more time, even though this team has done everything in their power to take the love that people feel for baseball and grind it up and crush it. And this was a terrible, terrible, terrible way for a season to end. I have to tell you, at the end of this game, the Orion Kerkering play, which we'll talk about, I am not ready to just give a blanket absolution. I'm not going to absolve Orion Kerkering of a boneheaded play, panicked play in the moment with the bases loaded. I'm not going to do that. But it never should have come down to Orion Kerkering throwing the ball to home plate. It never should have come to an 11th inning. It never should have had to come to a point where a Phillies team that scored a single run on the night was playing into the 11th inning. I could make the case that Orion Kerkering shouldn't even have been in the game in the 11th inning. There are questions about Rob Thompson. There are questions about his decision-making in this game, the buttons that he tried to push. Some would argue that the buttons, for the most part, worked. I would say that he overmanaged this game and put in a guy that not a single soul in this city, in this area, anybody who keeps up with baseball knows that Orion Kerkering in a high leverage situation is not the way to go. And it played out about the way that you would expect it to. And I am absolutely beside myself because on the Kerkering play, I was sitting on a bed in the hotel room, getting ready to fly back to Philadelphia from Vegas. And as the play happened, I sat with my jaw about to hit the bed. It was the same befuddled feeling and emotion that I had when Michael Leighton allowed the game-winning goal to Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks in the 2010 Stanley Cup Final, where the crowd didn't know how to react. Now, obviously, in Los Angeles, the crowd went ecstatic, but I have to imagine that every Phillies fan sitting at home sat absolutely dumbfounded what they just saw. I haven't had a moment hit me the same way since the Leighton goal. Now, I'm going to bring up the comment section down in the bottom corner of the screen. You're certainly more than welcome to comment. There have already been a couple coming in through YouTube. We have a lot to get to in this game. The Eagles are still playing. The Flyers started their season. I'll probably do a show on Friday to recap the Flyers game, to recap whatever happens in the rest of the Eagles game. But this is just another missed opportunity. And I said on the Tuesday show that I really thought there was a chance that we were going to eventually look back on this Phillies team, this Phillies window, and say this is going to go down as one of the what should have been, what could have been an absolutely missed opportunity. I will take you back to the 08 to 2012 Phillies, where each and every year, the 08 team was, in a way, a bit of a surprise. That World Series win, you look at that team, even to look back at it now, and to look at each of the individual parts, and you go, wow, Phillies won a World Series with like a Jeff Jenkins playing for them. The Phillies won with a wonderful guy like Jamie Moyer in the rotation, pitching meaningful innings. And then he said in 09, they added Cliff Lee. 2010, Roy Halladay. 11, you have Lee and Halladay. And a stacked rotation. You say to yourself, it can only get better. They're going to get back to the mountaintop again. When this Phillies team lost the World Series a few years ago, we all kind of felt like they had a bunch of very good players, high-level players, big money players that were going to continue to make meaningful plays in the postseason, and eventually they were going to get over the hump. And then we saw them shit the bed against the Diamondbacks. And each and every year we've seen this team take a step back. Now, last year, horrific. Absolutely awful. Second half of the season, 500 team. Couldn't put the Mets away. They end up getting their teeth kicked in by the Mets in the postseason. This year, it felt like going into the playoffs, you're in better shape. You feel overall better about the potential direction of the Phillies and the momentum going into the playoffs. And you even looked at the Dodgers and you said, even if you're being fair, you know that this Phillies team, in theory, should have been able to compete with the Dodgers. And despite all of the awful shit that we saw, despite all of the offensive incompetence we saw in this series, the Phillies were actively engaged in this series. They were legitimately within striking distance in multiple games of ultimately competing in this series. And yet, the number one thing that people have been critical about with this team is the thing that was ultimately their undoing. Because once again, I am not going to crucify Orion Kerkering for a bad play that ultimately ends the season, because this game was lost far, far earlier. This game was not lost by Christopher Sanchez. This game was not lost by Juan Duran walking in a run with the bases loaded. This game was not lost with Jesus Luzardo getting pulled. This game was not lost with a nervy couple of moments with Matt Strahm. This wasn't even lost with the decision to bring in Orion Kerkering. This game was lost because the biggest players in this lineup, once again, came up incredibly, unfathomably small. And last year, we'll take you back to last year. Bryce Harper wanted an extension. We heard through spring training, Bryce Harper wants a contract extension. Bryce Harper would be excited about the opportunity to have more years. And I said at the time, just based on the contract he already has, he's going to be a significantly reduced player by the second half of the contract. You can't give him more years. He essentially recruited the Schwarbers, the Castellanoses, to this team. He certainly was influential in bringing JT Realmuto here. This shit's over. This run is over. This core, as it's been constructed, this core that was run back year after year after year, it is over. And I have told you guys since last year that I was deeply concerned about complacency from the top of this organization, from Dave Dombrowski. And I told you all through the offseason, missed opportunity to get a real bat in here that can hopefully make this lineup at least slightly slump-proof. You got to the deadline. Harrison Bader was the big bad acquisition. In the offseason, it was Max Kepler. Kepler put together a nice stretch in the second half of the season. I don't bemoan the fact that he was on this team. Harrison Bader played significantly better than anyone could have expected, but that's not the impact bat either. And what ultimately happened? In a game that was essentially an elimination game, and you had your backs against the wall going in, Trey Turner goes 0 for 5. Schwarber has a single hit. Bryce Harper, who? Bryce Harper goes 0 for 4 in an elimination game. There's your game. I don't want to talk about Orion Kerkering throwing the ball away at home plate in the bottom of the 11th inning with the bases loaded. That was not what lost the game. Yeah, that was the play that ended the season. That's not where this game was lost. I've been talking a lot about Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber and the inability to produce runs at the top of the lineup. And in game 3, Schwarber came alive. And you started to feel like maybe momentum was going to shift, because if you had a red-hot Kyle Schwarber, maybe it would take a little bit of pressure off of Bryce Harper. And even if you're not going to get the MVP caliber Bryce Harper, if you could get even a remotely mediocre at best player out of Bryce Harper, it would be enough to get you back to Philadelphia for a game 5. They couldn't even do that. I'll go out to the comments, but this is an absolutely disgraceful end of a season, and it is time to make some significant changes. And if Dave Dombrowski gets called into John Middleton's office, and John Middleton says, "Dave, what's the plan?" And Dave says, "Well, it's a good team. It's a good team. You have to be patient. There's a lot of good here. We think that the team is good, John. It's a good, you put a lot of money into the team, John. It's a good team, John. You just have to stay the course. It's going to be okay. We're going to make some tweaks, but the centerpiece of the roster is still good, John." If Dave Dombrowski says that, he should probably be jettisoned into the sun. And unfortunately, I would guess that if you were to ask Dave Dombrowski right now, if we could bring him on the show, and would say, hey, Dave, what's the plan? What are you going to do? Who are you moving off of? I would bet you almost any money, almost any amount of money, that Dave Dombrowski would try to make the case that this team is worth bringing back again next year. You have huge decisions on the horizon. Ranger Suarez is a free agent because you didn't lock him up. Kyle Schwarber coming off of a near MVP season and a horrible end of the regular season and a piss poor at best playoff series against the Dodgers, game 3 notwithstanding, potentially gone at the end of the year. JT Realmuto, same. You have decisions to make. Do you want Dave Dombrowski to be the guy to make those decisions? Do you want Dave Dombrowski who's been complacent? Do you want Dave Dombrowski, who I would argue has committed organizational malpractice by not filling out this roster with a better impact bat in the offseason or closer to the trade deadline? Do I think that the inability of this front office to bring in not just one very good arm in Juan Duran, but a second very good bullpen arm ultimately undid them? Yeah, I think it probably was a big reason why the Phillies lost this series against the Dodgers. Remember, they had to go bargain barrel shopping to go pull out the decrepit corpse of Dave Robertson to try to bring him in, to try to get meaningful innings out of him. And ultimately, playoffs, it really didn't work. Do you want Dave Dombrowski to run that rebuild? Do you want Dave Dombrowski to run the retooling of this team? I don't. I'll go out to the comments. I thought about actually opening this up to bringing people on so you can air out your concerns. I don't know how I feel about it. You guys can let me know in the comments. Steven over on YouTube says there's a lot of players that shouldn't be back next year at all. I think that's putting it very nicely. Nick DeCristo says, I did a $20 parlay just for the hell of it tonight. I can't believe all 3 teams may lose. That's actually what you should have done. You should have picked all 3 teams to lose. I chose the Flyers to win, mostly as a joke, but they were like, I guess, 8-0-2 in their last 10 season openers, and they opened on the road against the Stanley Cup champion, back-to-back season champion, Florida Panthers. We'll talk about that on Friday's show. We'll get into that game tomorrow. Right now, we are focused on the Phillies, but yes, all 3 teams might lose. We'll see. Jim Cochran says, I know the big bats failed us, but any chance we can get a manager next season that isn't an old man with a little kid nickname? How many more games? As many as it takes, Topper. Rob Thompson might have been the best guy for this core. He might have been. We're not going to just whitewash the history of Rob Thompson as a manager here. We're going to try to be fair. Rob Thompson might have gotten the most there was to get out of this core. But I will once again point out, Bryce Harper was non-existent in this series. A lot of people wanted to kind of point back to historical trends. They want to look at Bryce Harper's entire postseason career as a way to justify his underperformance this postseason. That's not how this works. Don't point me back to 4 postseasons ago. Don't point back to many years gone by. We're looking at this series. We're looking at the impact of a player in this series. Here's the worst part, too. If you think about just how this series played out, how many meaningful moments did Shohei Ohtani have? Right? This comes back to the fact that the starting pitching in this series got the job done for the most part. There weren't like iconic Shohei Ohtani moments in this series. There really weren't iconic Mookie Betts moments in this series. Starting pitching, for the most part, did its job. Christopher Sanchez did his job in 2 games. Jesus Luzardo did his job in his start. He did yeoman's work out of the bullpen tonight. Ranger Suarez and Aaron Nola did a hell of a job in Game 3. The starting pitching wasn't the problem. And we even knew in the course of the regular season, the starting pitching wasn't going to be the problem. Now, the Jose Alvarado suspension, that certainly hurt. But the inability to go out again, as I mentioned, and get yet another bullpen arm to replace Jose Alvarado going into the postseason was a problem. The Zach Wheeler injury, the Zach Wheeler blood clot issue, did that throw a wrench into the Phillies' plans? Sure. Did they probably think that they would have Wheeler and Sanchez and then probably Nola as their top three in a rotation going into the playoffs? Yes. Did they probably think they'd be able to use Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo out of the pen? Sure. Was that maybe what they were banking on in not replacing Jose Alvarado in a meaningful way? Maybe. Maybe. But that's why you always have contingency plans. This team didn't have them. Wyatt Busiet says, not a TV smashing moment, but I was standing and I dropped into a Slav squat with my face in my hands. I couldn't even say anything. Stunning. I was the same way. Like I said, it was that absolutely just kind of gobsmacked moment of sitting on the bed. And I think after what felt like an eternity, I said, what just happened? Like, what did I just see? Did I really just see the ball get thrown away like that? And then I kind of thought to myself, oh, yeah, maybe Kerkering, when he went to scramble and pick up the ball, thought he didn't have a play at first base. For some reason, he thought he had a play at home base or at home plate. I don't know what he was thinking, but I'm not going to go after Kerkering. It was a bad play. We all know it was a bad play. He shouldn't have been in the game at that point. Chris Freed says, Philly fans are having a Black Thursday 1929 type night. Everything is crashing. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Where's Herbert Hoover? Kevin at iRock Philly says that 2007 to 2011 era should have won more than one championship. Kevin's right. But that's what my problem has been with the Bryce Harper era of Phillies baseball, is that you don't even have the one championship to show for it. We will undoubtedly look back at like the 2022 to 2025 Phillies and say, with all that talent, how the hell did they never win a championship? And I know it's going to sound hyperbolic, but like, I'm just kind of looking at this from a realistic perspective. At this point, I'm pretty convinced the Phillies will not win a World Series with Bryce Harper. Because I don't know what the fix is. Like, play this one out. JT Realmuto is not the same player he once was. Still a very good player. Still a very useful catcher. Not the same player. Not getting any younger. And there's always the possibility, as is the case with catchers as they get older, that he's going to have to like move to first base. So is Bryce Harper going to move to the outfield so that JT Realmuto can play first base? I'm not so sure. Kyle Schwarber is probably going to command $30 million plus per year on the open market. On a shorter term deal, on a 3 or maybe 4-year deal, can you stomach it? Probably. Because you think about the alternative. If he leaves, what are you replacing Kyle Schwarber with? You have no one in the minors right now who can even come close to replacing the pop that Kyle Schwarber gives you. But is it really the best allocation of funds in a league that, while it doesn't have a salary cap, your owner is probably imposing some version of a cap on the front office? He's not going to spend $1 billion on the payroll. What's the goal? What's the thought? Ranger Suarez should be back. Ranger Suarez should have been extended in the offseason, and now it's entirely possible he will leave. Not great. What's the path to getting to a World Series and winning a World Series with a Bryce Harper-led team? And again, Harper's had some injuries. And on a human level, we will give him a bit of grace that there's a newborn in the house, and that kind of stress can certainly mess with you. And going into a playoff series, no one wants to think about the human side of things, but we will give at least a tiny modicum of understanding to Bryce Harper. And at the same time, an 0-for performance in an elimination game isn't even close to good enough. Not even remotely close. Wyatt also says, Marsh has to go. Keep Bader. Bohm has to go. Keep Stott for defense. Casty has to go. Kepler has to go. Keep JT. Find another catcher. Keep Ranger for the love of God. Well, Marsh Marsh had a really nice second half of the season. Marsh kind of proved why he's not an everyday guy in the playoffs. Bohm, I agree Bohm should be gone. Stott is okay. He's your 9-hole hitter. Anybody who would want to go after Stott after the series is missing the point. Castellanos has another year left at $20 million. He had a clutch hit today. He did. He had a clutch hit tonight. He had like 2 hits the entire series, or 3 hits or whatever the entire series, and 2 of them were doubles. You go, all right, well, he had some not great comments. I think he probably needs a change of scenery. I think that is something that needs to be mutually agreed upon, and they've got to make that move. I'm not so sure that Kepler has to go, but if Kepler thinks he's an everyday guy, then I think that also has to be an amicable split. Chris Freed says Kerkering has no future left in Philly. Mentally, he is cooked. Stick a fork in him. It's a shame. There was so much hope for Kerkering. This playoff series was about as bad as it could have been for him on a lot of levels. Josh Gaynor says, I've become numb to the disappointment. Just going through the motions of watching all 3 teams tonight. I tried not to get my hopes up too high for this Phillies team. But going into the playoffs, I kept saying it felt like things were a little bit different this year than they were a year ago. It did feel like going into this postseason, this team was better set up to carry some momentum into the playoffs. I wasn't worried about the bats being cold because of not playing in the wild card round. I think we need to dispel a very simple notion here. The fewer series you have to play in the playoffs, the better. Just like in football, having home field advantage in the first round bye is huge. It takes one of the possible chances of you losing out of the equation. If you can't figure out a way to stay locked in, if you can't figure out a way with today's technology to at least kind of keep your mind as locked in as possible while your future opponent plays the best of a 3-game series, there's an issue. I don't think that the layoff is what cost the Phillies. I think the Phillies' inability to perform in the clutch moments once again reared its ugly head, and no one should be surprised. It's a shame, and I can tell you that, like, when I look back on it now, I always get this sinking feeling. It's like whenever a Philly team is about to get knocked out of the playoffs, I always say to myself, I'm not ready for this to be over. And on a lot of levels, I felt that tonight. And as it went into extra innings and it went to the 10th and it went to the 11th, I kept kind of having that sinking feeling of I'm not ready for this to be done. I wanted to see the Phillies force a game 5 because I wanted to believe that home field advantage that really hasn't been in the last couple of postseasons, I wanted to imagine that was actually going to help. And I didn't fear the Dodgers in the way that maybe I should have, or the way that we collectively should have. But this is a frustrating one. Like, this is a different level of frustration because you have a bunch of big money guys who either are pending free agents, or you have a guy in like Castellanos who is owed a lot of money on a 1 year, 1 year remaining on his contract, and you're probably going to have to try to figure out a way to move him. Wyatt says they just couldn't hit. Sanchez, Luzardo, Nola, Ranger, Duran deserved better. I agree. And again, I know that there are people who are going to say, well, if Juan Duran comes in a high leverage moment and he doesn't walk the run in, the Phillies win 1-0. Sure. I guess. I'm not going to blame Duran. Chris Reed says the bats are batless. Jim Cochran says the 23 and 24 teams showed us how this would end, but is it over yet, or do we have to run it back in 26 because of awful contracts? Well, if you wanted to, you could let Real Muto leave. I don't love that. Does that mean you're going to have Marchand and Stubbs as your catchers? That's not ideal. If Schwarber leaves, who's your DH? Is Harper going to become the DH? Are they going to decide to go after Pete Alonso to play first base? Is that going to be a net positive over letting Schwarber go? Not so sure. If you move Castellanos, probably whatever you replace Castellanos with is going to be okay. If Castellanos were still like a very productive player and a legitimate everyday player, then you'd regret it. But things have fallen apart with him in the city. I think it's over. I don't see a path. The only way that I think you can win a World Series with Bryce Harper right now is if you bring back Ranger Suarez, you go into next season, you hope that Zach Wheeler gets healthy, and that you just ride having the best starting rotation in baseball again. And you just kind of hope and pray and cross your fingers and tootsie toes that the bats aren't going to die in the postseason, but they will. You almost need to bring in somebody who's like a Bryce Harper equivalent to this team. I don't know who that guy is. No team's going to want to trade that guy. Is there a free agent I'm missing that's like a real difference maker? I mean, nobody thought Juan Soto was going to come here in the offseason. If Juan Soto had been on this team, would he have made a significant difference? Probably not. But at least you would look at it next year and say, all right, you do have somebody on the team who's better than Bryce Harper. Who is actually better in theory? Who's better on this team than Bryce Harper? Schwarber had an incredible MVP caliber season, but like on balance, is he really a better player than Bryce Harper? And are you convinced that he's going to be a better player than Bryce Harper for like the next 2, 3, 4 years? I would guess not. Kevin and Iraq Philly asks, is there now more of a chance you don't bring back Schwarber and Real Muto? I don't know how you can. That I think is the real crux of the problem. And I think that's ultimately where it's going to be really, really difficult for the Phillies to kind of make the case internally that it's worth bringing these guys back. I don't know how you can. But then at the same time, you look at the potential replacements on the market and they're not exactly better. And you don't have anybody internally that you feel better about bringing in. Like, even if you wanted to say, all right, from an outfield perspective, we're going to move Castellanos and Justin Crawford's going to come up. Fine. Here's the problem. Where was Justin Crawford this season? He didn't ultimately come up. Oh, you're going to let Ranger Suarez go. Why? So Andrew Painter can come up? Okay. You guys in the Phillies front office sure made it sound like Andrew Painter, it was a foregone conclusion, was going to be on this team in the second half of the season, which maybe would have allowed you to have Luzardo and Suarez coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs. And then that didn't happen. And the worst part about that one, we didn't even really talk about it on the show. The worst part of that was that Dave Dombrowski had the audacity to go out and say to the media, well, I didn't exactly say he was going to be on the team in the second half of the series. I said that he was going to be available to be on the team in the second half of the season. I didn't say he would be on the team. I said he'd be available to be on the team. Fucking Temu.com, Mr. Rogers. Get out of here. Wyatt says, I think Duran should have faced Ohtani. Right? That was the intentional walk that ultimately led to the walk, the run that got walked in. Says, I think Duran should have faced Ohtani, but we lost because Trey, Kyle, and Bryce did nothing. I would agree with pretty much all of that. I will also give Rob Thompson a slight benefit of the doubt on the decision to walk Ohtani. With a base open and Ohtani at bat, and Ohtani having a relatively bad series by pretty much every metric, you could make the case that Ohtani was due. If Ohtani doesn't get walked in that situation and he crushes the ball into the gap or he hits a 3-run home run and the Dodgers take the lead and go on to win the game, everybody on Monday morning would be ready to go on to Sports Talk Radio and say Rob Thompson's a total buffoon because he allowed Duran to pitch to Shohei Ohtani. Should have known better. You should have put him on. You had a base open. So I'm not going to actually question the decision there. But it did set up the possibility that Duran coming in that moment, in that situation, had no room for error. There was no margin for error. And ultimately, it cost them. Steven says, it's sad how your big four didn't do shit since the series started. Who's almost $1 billion in payroll. I mean, it's horrible. Kevin says, Russ, I hear you about the top 3 in offense, but how did the Dodgers big hitters do? They were not great either. And that is a fair point, my friend. That is a fair point. The Dodgers big hitters also didn't really get the job done. The difference in the series is that the Dodgers, lower half of the lineup, those guys figured out ways to contribute. This Phillies team did not have that. Listen, Bader, I think we can all agree, if he's healthy for the entirety of the series, maybe this looks a little bit different. I think the second that Bader came out, it was just kind of like an oh shit. Because defensively, you're worse without Bader in the field. And also at the plate, Bader has been pretty damn good. Better than expected, better than advertised. It's a shame. Linda Joseph compiled all the numbers, right? 1 for 14, Turner, Harper, and Schwarber. Awful. Awful. Wyatt says Bryce Harper gets every pitch down and away and goes for it. He went full 2023 Trey Turner. I will say that, like, when it comes to like a pitch down and away, the at-bat that Bader put together when he pinch hit was a great at-bat. And then for it to end with him swinging at something down and away like that was very frustrating. Peter Tom Willis is here talking about Kerkering. Says, got to make that play. Yeah. Kevin says, losing Wheeler, Alvarado, Bader, and falling short. Harper really came up small in the series. People are going to have to figure out a way to reconcile this. You can be a big fan of Bryce Harper. You can be a big fan of some postseason moments he's had in the past and Bedlam at the bank and yada, yada, yada. He sucked this postseason. He was a 0. I would actually argue when it came to the Phillies-Dodgers series, Bryce Harper wasn't just a 0. He was a net negative. Because a 0 is what you might expect out of your 9-hole hitter. If Bryson Stott had gone 0-4 in the series, you'd say to yourself, that sucks. That's really bad. But he does bat 9th. Bryce Harper going 0-4 in the middle of the lineup, Bryce Harper being a legitimate black hole where it matters the most in the lineup is probably what cost this team. We can all get on Trey Turner for having a terrible series. We'll also note Trey Turner worked his ass off to get back from injury and get back in the lineup before the regular season ended and didn't have a whole hell of a lot of at-bats. Now, should he have been at the top of the lineup? That maybe is a more interesting question. Should Bader have remained or been in contention to be the number 1 or 2 hitter on this team, with Schwarber being the other 1 or 2 hitter? I think there's probably a case to be made, especially with how Turner continued to struggle. Schwarber had a huge game 3, is pretty much the reason that you won game 3. Harper was not just bad, he was comically atrocious. Let's see. Jim Cochran asks, is Turner the biggest free agent disappointment in Philadelphia sports history? Nnamdi Asamoah's up there. Byron Maxwell's up there. Elton Brand is up there. Nah, there have been worse. There have definitely been worse. Ilya Brizgalov was a huge disappointment. The shame is that, like, Turner looked like a legitimately awesome next level player. Like, when I asked the question a while ago, what player on this team is better than Bryce Harper moving forward because you need it, there was probably a thought when Turner came in that, like, Turner maybe could end up being the best player on the team. Sure ain't the case now. Gerald is here. Hello, Gerald. Says that's the worst way to lose a game. Damn. Agreed. We're all going to feel bad about the last play. But again, this was lost way, way before that. Let's see. Jim says they cannot re-sign Schwarber. No way. Would be a huge mistake. Let's see. There was a Safari Elvis 36. I don't recognize that name. Safari, thanks for finding the show. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thank you. Okay. Says ESPN is saying Kerkering is the 2025 biggest choke of the playoffs. It was a bad play. It was a really, really bad play. Chris Freed says, unless you get Bushi to manage, you stay with Topper. I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, not sure. Safari Elvis thinks that Kerkering should be fired into the moon or into the sun. Says no excuses. You can't tank a play like that in the NLDS. He should be DFA'd immediately. No, he shouldn't be. But there's probably going to be a conversation about whether or not he ultimately is on this team next year. Amy says, can't imagine Castellanos wants to be here anymore unless Rob goes. I don't really give a shit what Castellanos wants. I think he probably should be moved. Connor Buss asks, are the Union the only team in Philadelphia worth watching? 610-632. Speaking of that, maybe we'll talk about that on Friday's show. Harry Mays, Jason Martinez back at the Fanatic. Rotating co-host chair with Johnny Marks and middays. Very interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it on Friday's show. Let's see. Jim Cochran says, this is the third show you've brought up Bryce's baby. I have 3 kids. I understand normal people have it rough with new babies, but if it affected him plan better, he makes too much money. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I don't. I have no idea. You have no idea. None of us have an idea of how involved of a newborn father Bryce Harper is. If he's anything like many of us that actually do want to be good dads, you're going to be tired. You're going to be stressed. On a human level, there's not a chance in the world that I would actively go out of my way to not live up to my parental duties and just say, all right, honey, I got a playoff series. Good luck to you and the baby with the monitor. I wouldn't do that. But then again, I'm not Bryce Harper. I have no idea. Let's see. Oh, we got it. Whoa, we got a super chat coming in. Zero Cool 78. Thank you, Zero Cool 78. $5 super chat. Bless your heart. High five to you. Says, I appreciate the coverage. My thought is trash all 9 position players for the AAA club, but the reality is they will all be back. No other option. I disagree, though, right? I would imagine that there will be some change. Castellanos to me has to be gone. I wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies try to figure out a nice way to have an amicable split with Kepler. It very clearly didn't go the way that he wanted it to here. Unless you're going to essentially say to Kepler, look, we're moving Castellanos, you're going to have an everyday spot in the outfield, then maybe it's worth trying to save. I don't think that at the end of the season, Kepler was the reason that this team didn't get the job done and didn't deliver in the postseason. The Schwarber thing really does become the big question. I don't think the Real Muto thing matters that much. I do think that if you can bring him back on a short-term deal, Real Muto's not the reason that you lost the series. Real Muto's had some clutch hits. He had some clutch hits down the stretch in the regular season. I still think he's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. And I would still say that, like, as a guy who can hit in your lineup, like number 6 or so in your lineup from the right-hand side of the plate, like, still a guy that's worth having around on a short-term deal. If Real Muto wants like a 5-year deal, well then, okay, then he's gone. Schwarber to me is the real question. Schwarber to me is the one that, like, it felt like at the end of the regular season, right? Middleton essentially said, we'll do whatever it takes to bring him back. If you're Kyle Schwarber and you're being realistic and you know that you maybe have 1 or 2 seasons left of like significant production left, right? If Schwarber's realistic and he goes, I probably have 1 or 2 more seasons that I could try to do MVP caliber hitting like I did this year. And you're watching the return on this team get worse and worse and worse every year, or an early playoff. I mean, you could say, Russ, they made the NLDS. They didn't have to play in the wild card round. How could you say it's a step back? I would say that at the very least, it was a push. It was still a first round loss for the Phillies. It's technically the second round of the playoffs, but it's a first round loss. It's a first series loss. If you're Kyle Schwarber, do you look around and say, I don't know, is there a team out there that is better set up to compete in a significant way over the next 2-3 years? And if there is, I don't think he comes back. Andrew Fawcett with a super chat. Thank you, Andrew. Says, put it in black for me. I think he means put it on black for me. I'm not going to go gamble in the casino. I don't like to gamble in casinos. I don't understand how to gamble in casinos. I don't understand it. I thought about putting $10 into a slot machine, which I also don't know how to do, and just hope that I would win money. I don't think that's really a sustainable idea. I thought about playing a few hands of blackjack, and then I remembered that, like, the likelihood of me winning enough for that to actually be fun or worth it, probably not very high. So I probably won't put it on black for you because I also don't know how to play the table games. Ford is here. Ford says, I hate Philly sports at this point. This Eagles team is miserable too. Injuries, sure, but the offense sucks too. Ford, we are not even talking about the Birds right now. We'll talk about them on Friday's show, assuming I can get up early enough and get a show out early enough before I have to fly out of Las Vegas. The plan is to talk about the Flyers' start of their season and to talk about the Eagles game on a Friday show. We'll see if it happens. King Alfred's U.S. descendant says 6 of the last 10 playoff losses occurred with the bullpen blowing a lead or tie in the 7th inning or later. And it's true and it's fair. And again, this is why I've said the starting pitching deserves a ton of respect, a tip of the cap. You cannot walk away from this series feeling like Christopher Sanchez did anything wrong. You can't walk away from this saying that Jesus Luzardo did anything wrong. You can't walk away from this saying Aaron Nola, of all people, and Ranger Suarez did anything wrong. They lived up to their billing. Was there a gigantic Jose Alvarado-sized hole in the bullpen that this team did not address? Yes. Yes. Was there a Zach Wheeler-sized hole in the starting rotation? Yes and no. The starters all performed. I would say that this rotation performed as well as it could have without Zach Wheeler. If Wheeler had been available, it would have pushed Luzardo and or Suarez into bullpen spots, and then you wouldn't have had to go to Kerkering in high leverage situations in this series that didn't work. Maybe you wouldn't have had to go to Strom in the game that Hernandez turns on a pitch, hits it the other way for a 3-run home run. That's a whole lot of ifs and buts. Jim says, even if you don't have big name replacements next season, why lock guys into big money contracts that you know won't get it done in October? Because they don't know what your alternative is. If you say to Schwarber, to Real Muto, even a Ranger Suarez, you say, hey guys, it's been a great run. It's over. If you try to tell that to your fans, hey, it was a great run. It's over. And you don't have anything to replace them with, then there is no belief that this team is going to be better or better positioned to get something done next year. If you're not going to lock guys into big money contracts because you're afraid of their inability to perform in October, but you don't have a realistic plan to replace them with someone who can, then you are essentially saying, instead of even just being a plateaued team that's going to continue to come up small in the first round of the playoffs, you're going to say, well, we're probably going to become a team that doesn't even make the playoffs, maybe isn't even competing for a playoff spot in the final month of the regular season. I don't know if that can help. I don't know if that makes things better. And it's also not like hockey, to some extent, if there's a generational talent available, or it's not like basketball, or even to some extent football, where like, oh, we can have a year where we still have some guys under big money contracts, but like there's injury issues or you're trying to retool and you end up getting a high draft pick that kind of helps to supplement your roster. That ain't happening. You don't have that. There's not an impact guy that you're going to be able to draft in the summer and add to this team, you know, a year from now and say, oh yeah, that guy, that was worth it. Like it doesn't work like that. Greg Bondarenko says we need to get a 1993 type Phillies team. Just grit, play hard, and hustle. Have fun too. I think that it's easy to forget this, but at the end of the regular season, this Phillies team kind of did play that way. And I thought Harrison Bader was a massive part of that team playing that way. And then the playoffs happened, man, and it just did not go well at all. Okay, let's see. Ford says I said the bats would go cold. Y'all know I did. Ford did. Hashtag Ford was right. KW1323 says Turner, Schwarber, Harper 3 for 35 in the 3 losses. That's what lost you the series. Again, we can have a moment where you say, Orion Kerkering, what the hell were you thinking? I can't even be that mad about it because they shouldn't have been in that situation. It'd be like saying, there's a car careening down the road and it's about to like smash into a field of pumpkins. I'm trying to make this as like least offensive as possible. There's a car careening down the road and it's about to smash into a field of pumpkins, and they're useful pumpkins. They're needed for pumpkin related activities. And then you find out that like it was a sleepy 16-year-old driving the car. And they're obviously fine. They hit some pumpkins and they're okay. But then in the aftermath, are you really mad at the 16-year-old who's sleepy for driving into the field of pumpkins when you find out that the 16-year-old's family kept them up all night to celebrate their 16th birthday or something? This is a really shitty analogy. I can come up with a better one, but not now. Anyway, the idea is, are you really going to blame the person who ultimately was the last touch person, the person who ultimately committed the action that ended the season, ended the pumpkin patch? Or are you mad at everything that happened around it that put that person in the situation? I'm more mad at the Phillies decision makers and at the Phillies lineup for putting Orion Kerkering in the position where he has a total brain fart and throws the ball away. Andrew Fawcett asks, would Robertson have made the same mistake? I will also ask I'll ask this question. Should the Phillies have been in a situation where they would have needed Dave Robertson? Should they have needed him? No. They should have been able to go out and get another arm. And especially when Jose Alvarado got suspended, they should have been able to get another arm. It never should have even had to come down to Dave Robertson. Also, I'm not exactly positive that he wouldn't have just given up a home run. Andrew Bagley over on X says Bryce Harper needs to be called out for being a non-factor in the playoffs. I've done it. You know who has to feel vindicated right now? And I gave her a shout the other day. I gave her kudos on Twitter. But Natalie Eganoff was on this games ago, like about a week ago, maybe a little bit less than a week ago. She was all over it. And it's true. Bryce Harper woefully underperformed this postseason. It was dreadful. And anybody who wants to make him, anybody who wants to try to make an excuse for Bryce Harper is doing so. It's an exercise in futility. It's not worth it. You should stop. Greg Bondarenko says, Phillies team reminds me of the Maple Leafs having a big core group that goes missing in the playoffs. That's kind of fair, actually. Dersh says $925 million for 3 players to get that. Yeah, that's pretty fair. KW1323 says this era of Phillies baseball is most likely over. It is. We can play out the hypothetical again. If you bring back Schwarber and Real Muto and Suarez, and you replace Castellanos, and you replace Max Kepler, are you really making the team that much better? The answer is probably no. If the Phillies thought that Justin Crawford was a difference-making player, they would have brought him up. Because remember, Kepler didn't play well. Castellanos essentially got relegated to be a platoon guy. They didn't believe in Justin Crawford. And if they did, he would have been on this team. So replacing Kepler and or Castellanos with probably Bader, you would imagine they're going to try to bring back Bader and Crawford. I don't know if that makes you better. How much better could it make you? Wyatt asks, if Kyle Tucker makes it to free agency and Dave doesn't sign him, Dave has to be fired the day after Tucker signs elsewhere. I thought, didn't he re-up? Am I crazy? Am I nuts for thinking that he re-upped? I thought he did. I thought he got traded and he re-upped. No? Maybe not. I guess I'm wrong. I'm looking. 1 year, 16. Oh, okay, I am wrong. It was a 1 year, $16.5 million contract that he signed with the Cubs. I don't know why I thought he... I have no idea why I thought he had a significantly higher, longer contract. I thought he re-upped for a much longer time. Okay. I'm wrong. According to Spotrac, Kyle Tucker's value on the market, if you were to give fair market value, is about $500 million. Are you really going to pay Kyle Tucker $500 million or close to it? Are you? Does anyone think that John Middleton is going to want to pay a player $500 million or pay him $400 million? Does anybody really think that's a great idea? Would he help this lineup? Sure, he would. Would he be the biggest impact player, the biggest impact difference maker for this team? I'm not so sure. He's 28. Age-wise, it's better than trying to sign a 33-year-old. I guess it all depends on how the series goes against the Brewers. That game is still in progress. Is he gonna want to go to free agency? We'll find out. Let's see. Ford says, I just wanted to enjoy a game. That's all. The thing is, the Eagles could win this game if the offense did anything. You can't expect he's talking about the Eagles. Ford, stop talking about the Eagles. It's for another day. Not now. Amadeo says, can I join this? I have lots to say. Amadeo, I guess. Come on. Come on, young man. Amadeo has the link. He can hop on. Come on the show for a sec. Air it out. Let yourself feel better. Get it off your chest. King Alfred's Descendant says, I'd like to see Alex Bergman at third base and Kyle Tucker in the outfield next season. Maybe. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Video guy Amadeo.
Hello.
Hello, Amadeo. How are you?
I'm frustrated, but I'm still shocked that's the way the year ended. But I'm also in the back of my mind, I'm yeah, I probably expected this too. I'm all like weird emotions, but I'm not as pissed as I thought I would be.
Now I'm in Vegas, but I hear a scream. Is Broads recording a show right now?
No, he
Must be.
actually told me something. He's like, he has his plan all set out because of the freaking Eagles and the way how long this game went. So he's doing something for the Eagles first, then he's doing his Phillies thing after.
So he'll have a little bit of time to come down off of the anger that he's almost certainly feeling. Well, that's a relief. I feel better for him.
I don't know. He knows how to hold his emotions in.
That's hilarious. If this had ended on a walk-off, would we have felt angrier? I guess that's the question. Like if Kerkering, instead of having the boneheaded play where he throws the ball away at home plate, and you're just like, holy shit, like what just happened? If this had ended on a walk-off single through the hole, would we be physically angry? Would we feel any different? Would the tone and tenor around free agent decisions coming up, would that feel any different? I'm not sure it would. I think we'd be angry. I think right now we're still in shock because of how it ended.
I think it's more, I think we're just all in shock, like you said, just because of the way that the game ended, because he literally just panicked and threw it home for no reason. Yeah. If he just allowed it on a general, like if he walked him or if he just allowed a hit, I think it would just be general frustration that we would all feel. But I think realistically, I think all of us knew once you brought in Kerkering, the game was over. I just didn't think he was going to get out of it. And he could have got out of it. He just threw the goddamn first base.
He's not a high leverage guy, and we all knew it.
No, he's not.
Will Griffin over on YouTube. Hello, Will. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Says, if Schwarber was staying, he would have signed at the deadline. Winning 100 games is great. If you don't go 1-3 in the playoffs, he's gone, y'all. I'm not sure that he's gone, but at the same time, what's the same thing I've been saying for a while, Amadeo? Middleton can say he'll pay him whatever it takes to keep him, which maybe he will, maybe he won't. If that were the case, I think he would have been re-signed in the offseason. I just tend to think, with no inside knowledge that this is true, but just a human reaction to how this did and did not play out in a contract negotiation, I have a feeling that Dave Dombrowski royally fucked up the Kyle Schwarber situation. So much so that Schwarber and or his representation walked away from the table and said, we will go to free agency in the offseason. I tend to think that Dombrowski lowballed Schwarber, and that Schwarber was like, all right, well, we're kind of done here. Or the agent said, all right, then we're done here. And then Schwarber went out and put up a near, like what would have been in many seasons, an NL MVP season. The shortcomings in the postseason aren't going to adversely affect his value on the open market. They're not at all. He's going to get $30+ million a year. I'm not sure it's going to be here. Middleton could offer him the moon and the stars, but I mean, you can offer him a lot, but he doesn't have to take it.
I don't know. I've had a feeling that Schwarber wasn't going to resign here for some reason. Just the entire year, it just felt like, and especially with the way that the season that he'd have almost MVP and all that stuff, 50+ home runs and all that. Someone is going to offer him 40 mil. Someone's going to offer him 40 mil. I don't think that's
40 seems. I think 40 seems insane.
It is, but it is Major League Baseball. Teams will
League Baseball.
Teams will cough up for a guy that had a career year, and they will overpay for that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't overpay for Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber, I don't know. Like, I want Schwarber back, don't get me wrong, but it's just like also in the back of my mind, you're also part of the problem. Just go play in Cincinnati, dude. I know that's where you want to play. And it's just, there's so many things with this team. I know they have so many free agents. Like this entire series, if I just look at the main guy, like the main group of guys that have been here for a while. Yeah, Bryce, Kyle, Trey, Nick, JT. JT, out of that entire bunch, he was the only one to have a hit in every single game. He was probably their most consistent batter.
Oh, here you go, by the way.
Still not good enough.
Sean Doherty says JT refused to talk about free agency after the game.
Oh, boy.
I would expect him to not address it. Like, that's not the point. Like, the point is we just lost again.
Yeah, it's not Pete Alonso where you immediately say I'm opting out of my contract.
Correct. It's like this just went sideways again. Like not great.
Yeah. And then with Ranger Suarez, he's a Scott Boras client. You already know he's testing the market because that's what all Scott Boras clients do. Yep. And then I think they already opted into Matt Strom's deal because of something that was in his contract, I believe. And like he had to pitch a certain amount of innings and he was guaranteed a year left on his contract, I believe. So Strom's going to be back next year.
I also don't hate Strom. I don't think Strom stinks. I think Strom as a guy that like comes in the 6th inning of a game is fine. I don't think that you want to go into a season again where he's like your setup guy or something close to it.
I think what really screwed over Matt Strom was Alvarado getting suspended. Because if Alvarado was not cheating and he's your 8th inning / 9th inning guy before they get Duran, and Strom's more pitching in 7th innings, he's more pitching in 8th innings, then maybe the occasional 8th inning setup guy, because if Alvarado needs a day off, it's that when Alvarado's coming in, here's that lefty that's going to pump gas and it's going to throw it down your neck, and then maybe Strom comes in every once in a while to throw you off. Oh, he's the precise lefty that's going to fool you or something like that. I really think Alvarado getting suspended screwed over. I know Strom sucked in the playoffs last year, but I really think Alvarado being suspended screwed him over this year.
I'm going to play counterpoint, though. If Alvarado doesn't get suspended, I'm not sure that Dombrowski goes out and gets Duran.
That's true.
And I would rather have Duran long-term, and I would assume that they're probably not going to bring back Alvarado.
Nah, I don't see it with
and if they do, it's going to be on a ridiculously cheap deal. But I would tend to think that Alvarado not getting suspended means you don't have Duran. So that's its own problem. But again, like Dombrowski's version of replacing Alvarado was going and getting David Robertson, who you could not rely on and should not have been the guy that you were going to. The shitty thing is that like everything is like a cascading effect. The Alvarado suspension led to bringing in Robertson and also made the Phillies realize they needed to get a guy like Duran. So you were still one bullpen arm short. And then you could have said to yourself, if Wheeler is healthy, Luzardo and Suarez are both probably coming out of the pen, then you don't have to use a Robertson. Then you maybe don't have to use Kerkering in high leverage moments, or maybe you're not going to Strom. Maybe you would have gone to Luzardo in the game that Hernandez hits the home run. There are a whole lot of what ifs, and it sucks because the big what if really is Wheeler being in the rotation, what it would have done to shift some of those arms to the bullpen. But overall, the starting pitching didn't get any worse. The starting pitching was fantastic the entire series. Kept a very potent Dodgers offense to very few runs.
My guy Aaron Nola.
He somehow, he had
he had 2 good innings, man. He had 2 good innings. He
had 2 good innings. Maybe that's what the Phillies need to do. Maybe they just need to turn Aaron Nola into the highest paid
opener
setup guy or like the highest paid middle reliever in baseball.
Well, if you really think about this, if Rob goes to Ranger in game 1 instead of fucking Robertson and Strom, Phillies win that game. They're probably up 2-1 in the series.
Yeah.
And they're going to a game 5.
Nando 390 over on YouTube says Red October equals Cancun October. I think it's fair to say Red October, more like Dead October, because this lineup, they were cold, they were dead, and they are never coming back, folks. They are dead, they are dying, they are deceased.
Speaking of dead, the Eagles are also dead. They're losing 34-17.
Oh, go Birds. Banner night. Oh, here you go. K-Dub. All-time banner night in Philly sports tonight.
Oh, man.
Anybody who put the 3-leg Philly hater parlay together, you're feeling pretty good about it tonight.
But hey, we can all be positive about one thing. Dan Vladar looked good.
Dan Vladar. We'll talk about him on Friday's show, assuming there is a Friday show, if I actually do it. JH says, in all caps, holy shit, fire Topper tonight and trade the team. Where do we trade the team to? If you remember, the A's originally were in Philly. The A's don't really have a home right now. Could we trade the Phillies for the A's? Would it be a good trade for Philadelphia?
Yeah, they're already built.
610,
They're already building the ballpark in Vegas. The Phillies will have a ballpark there. If you trade them,
Phillies would have a ballpark to go to. The A's could come back here.
Yeah,
Who
you just
says
got to
no?
you just got to remodel the bank after the A's.
Ford with a good question. Where is a man supposed to turn to go have fun with sports? Everywhere we turn, it's shit. Wise words. Wise words.
I don't know. Is this a more depressing day, or is it the one where the Phillies lost the World Series and the Union lost the same day?
That was a terrible night. No, that's an all-time horrible night. Losing the World Series and MLS Cup in the same day was horrific.
And then
also, MLS Cup was like 2 minutes away from being the Union's, and then Mbaizo lost Gareth Bale on the far post. And then
I think that's the only time I watched a Union game in my life, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, don't watch them this postseason. The Union deserve to have a nice run. Maybe all of this negativity is because the Union are going to go and no. If you've been a Union fan for the past like 12 years or whatever of the team being a thing, you know how this ends. They get to the semifinal and they die, or they somehow get to the final and they choke it away. But maybe it'll be a good Union postseason. JH says super duper excited for them to make no offseason moves and then run it back next year and be surprised when they choke out in the postseason again next year. I mean, that does kind of feel like it's in play. Let's see. Greg Bondarenko asks or says the best thing I'm happy about is the starting pitching on the Phillies, and asks, can we use Nola the way we use Jamie Moyer? Jamie Moyer was the shit. I think that if we're being honest here, I might have been more likely to feel confident in the bullpen if the Phillies had brought back Jamie Moyer this point than go to David Robertson.
How old is Jamie? Is he like in his 60s now?
I think Jamie Moyer has to be in his 60s, right? Because was he 48 when he pitched for the Phillies? He didn't get to 50, right? I was going to say he was 58.
He's 62.
He is 62.
Okay.
So Jamie Moyer's 62. I would feel better about Jamie Moyer in this bullpen than David Robertson.
He was 45 years old when he pitched for the Phillies in 08.
There we go.
And he pitched with the Phillies through age 47.
Jamie Moyer was a stud.
I want to see his postseason numbers, actually.
He was a freaking stud. You're looking up the Jamie Moyer stats?
Yeah.
They were great, man.
I got to see his playoff numbers in 08. I want to see.
I was at okay. I was gonna take a little gander at his postseason only, but you do you, honey boo boo.
Okay, 2007, he had a good game against Colorado, 1.5 ERA. 2008 against Milwaukee, he had a 4.5 ERA. He got the loss though. Against the Dodgers, he was not good, but against Tampa Bay in that World Series game at home after that very long rain delay, very good, very good. So he stepped up when he needed him to.
Let me see real quick. He pitched in two NLDS series in his career as a Philly. He had a 2.7 ERA across the NLDS.
Yep.
The NLCS, he had a 2.57. Sorry, that was the ALCS, 2.57.
40.5
ERA. The NLCS. He only pitched 1 in the third inning and gave up 6 runs. All right, so let's be nice. And that was against the Dodgers. So everybody just chill out.
Then he went 6 in the third against Tampa Bay, allowed 3 earned runs.
Correct. Jamie Moyer, bona fide stud.
Wasn't that the game where he also stuck his
By the way,
out?
Ammo's telling you, don't make fun of 62-year-olds. Nobody's making fun of 62-year-olds.
I'm not making fun of you, Dad. I'm not.
No. Is that your dad?
That is my dad.
Oh, Papa. Video guy Papa Deo. Papa Deo. Oh, yeah, there it is. JR97. Jeremy Roenick's here. What's up, JR? How you doing? Says Thompson is the worst X's and O's manager we've ever seen. You're damn right. Well, no. I think Gabe Kapler might have been worse.
Whoa.
Does that count?
Whoa.
Connor Bus says it's so over. Yeah, it's not good, guys. It's not good. Okay. Let me see if I could like find a little bit of a positivity. Can I try to find a little bit okay. There was a time not long ago, it was a season ago, where the Braves looked like they were going to be entering an all-time window. of being a team that was going to perpetually be in the NLCS, probably battling the Dodgers for a spot in the World Series. And this year went horrific. Like, it was a terrible season for the Braves. Now, they probably feel like they can rebound next year. This Phillies team is at a very critical juncture with significant free agents coming up, with no real quick fixes available in the offseason, at positions of great need. I have no idea what's going to happen. The Sixers offseason, I thought, was going to be pretty simple, right? Like, they were going to mostly run back the same team. The Sixers also benefited from getting VJ Edgecombe, who I think is going to be a good player for them, who can be an impact player because it's basketball. The Flyers don't have Porter Martone in the opening night roster, but he will probably play for this team in his second year after being drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Because hockey's different, and he's a very good player, and he's at a position of need, and he'll probably be on this team next year. Baseball doesn't work that way. I have no idea what they're going to do. Last year sucked, but you could also look back at it and say, well, these guys are all under contract. They're going to run it back. This is a very weird place to be, because I think there is a non-zero chance that Kyle Schwarber leaves, and it's not because the Phillies cheapskate him now. I think the Phillies probably undervaluing and offering below value to Kyle Schwarber last offseason might be the thing that does them in. And there's probably a sour taste after seeing how this postseason played out.
Yeah, I could definitely. I would think the only argument that's really against like the Phillies still being competitive next year is the starting rotation. Granted, we don't know what the health of Zach Wheeler is going to be like next year, coming off of his blood clot and everything like that. But yeah. Christopher Sanchez put up a Cy Young caliber season. Jesus Luzardo had a fantastic end to the season, and he was a stud in the playoffs. So there's something really good to build off there. I don't expect Aaron to be as bad as he was this year. I feel like that's just too extreme. I do think Taijuan Walker's gone next year.
You sweet boy.
Hey, I'm a NOLA guy, so don't judge me.
Taijuan Walker, you brought him up. Taijuan Walker's an interesting guy.
I don't think he'll be back next year. I think he's gone. I think.
You know what's interesting about Taijuan Walker, though?
What?
So Taijuan Walker had a spot on this postseason roster.
He did,
right? Remember that? He pitched in Game 3, a game that they won 8-2. He pitched 2/3 of an inning and gave up a run. And he's a highly compensated pitcher. And they gave up a spot on the postseason roster to him instead of having another bat that maybe could have given them a little bit of flexibility late in games. Good roster management on that one.
It's also Walker Buehler was on the roster. They didn't use him at all.
That was another thing I was honestly shocked about. And even when they were talking about Nola being the starter for Game 5 or whatever, I was like, Walker Buehler pitched well for this team down the stretch, like when he had his opportunities. He knows this roster. Like, why did Walker Buehler not get into a game? I thought that was a very strange choice. Will Griffin says, as a huge Harper and Schwarber fan, even before coming here, I honestly feel like they've peaked with the Phillies. Side note, if you allowed it, Darth Vladar was a badass, just got bobbed. That is fair. We'll talk about, all right, listen, I will do a show on Friday where we'll talk about Darth Vladar. Maybe we'll talk about whatever the hell happened in the Eagles game.
Oh boy.
The Flyers did have their first game of the season. I want to go back and like rewatch at least some of it because the Phillies had most of my attention. Excuse me. And the Flyers had a good amount of my attention, but not all of it.
I had a 3-screen setup today for this.
I'm in the hotel. So this hotel has 2 TVs. So it's a suite. Thanks to my company. Wonderful people. So the living room has a TV, and it's an open floor plan into the bedroom, which also has a TV. And then there's one in the bathroom. Like you're standing in the shower, and then like if you wipe away the mist and the steam, you can see the TV up in the corner. But I was thinking about it, and it's like, I was going to try to do the 3-screen setup. What's the problem, Amadeo? I'm in Vegas. Do I have NBC Sports Philadelphia to watch the Flyers? No. So that rules out one TV. I do have an HDMI wire. Maybe I could have rigged the laptop into that. There's no AirPlay to this TV. So I could have maybe rigged my way into that. And then Amazon Prime for the Eagles game. I would have had to try to rig that into something.
And
so
it's funny. It's funny they put that on Fox in Philadelphia.
it was on Fox. Okay.
Yeah, it's on Fox too.
I thought they used to put it on NBC if it was a local game. That's
I
weird.
think, and they did Fox for some reason. I have no idea.
Well, it might be about
spoke after
time.
the game.
It might be time for us to get the Fox out of here. But let me see if there's anything else. Oh, Bondarenko's right. I could have used ESPN Plus.
Oh
Because it
wow.
would have technically been an out-of-market game. That's a good call. Good call, Greg. Kevin says, as much as no one wants to hear this after such a bad loss, Phillies are going to have many players coming back. Hey, Kevin, you know, as a kid, you were told if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That comment's one of them. That is not a nice thing to say. We are all angry. We are all despondent and struggling. And somehow the Giants are currently beating the Eagles 34-17. That's what happens when, Landon
Phightin Words
Dickerson
is
hasn't
gonna be
been healthy
interesting tomorrow.
all year. Well, I hope that Phightin Words happens because Anthony, I think, is in LA to cover the game. And Big Bet Bob is probably...
He just posted a video of Kerkering interview on Twitter.
Anthony did?
Oh, the Patterson used Anthony's video.
Oh, boy. I don't know if we want to hear from Kerkering.
Well, it says Orion Kerkering was very candid after his miscue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he feels terrible.
Well, yeah,
all right, fine. Let's go to Kerkering really quick. Oh, wait, hold on. Anthony has video from Real Muto. Oh, boy. Oh, wait. No, we're going to do this. We're going to use...
Oh, boy.
We're going to use some on Patterson stuff. Here we go. First, let's go out to Bryce Harper talking about Rob Thompson. So, obviously, the media a narrative around Rob Thompson and how he's to blame, not the big money players who, once again, didn't perform in clutch situations. All right, let's go out first to Bryce Harper. This is Bryce Harper post-game a little bit ago, talking about the future of Rob Thompson as the Phillies manager. Let's go out to Bryce. How you doing? How you doing, Captain Ofer?
When you get this close, there's pressure on the manager. Do you think Rob is the right guy to continue leading this team forward?
I love Harper, man. He's done a great job for us. I don't know what the future holds. I have no idea. I think that's a Dombrowski question. But obviously, we love Harper in here. He's been great for us. But I think that's, like I said, that's Dombrowski.
That's a Dombrowski question. I like that he didn't call him Dave. That's a Dombrowski question. Not a front office question. That's a Dombrowski question. Okay. He does say that they love him, so that's good. Not a lot of pandering in that statement, though, huh? Question. After game 2, Bryce Harper said that he boos himself when he gets out. Did anybody see Bryce Harper boo himself tonight when he went 0 in an elimination game? Can somebody go back and check the film? Did Bryce Harper boo himself like he said he does when he gets himself out? Was there any active booing? Did he go yell at himself in a mirror going 0 in an elimination game?
Here's a joke. Why didn't he have the elimination gear that he had for the rivalry series? He has his elimination series gear.
Let's go out to Trey Turner.
There's going to be discussion about Rob's future. Do you think Rob is still the right guy to lead this team?
100%.
Turner's really quiet. He says, yeah, 100%.
He's great, man. I've been blessed with a lot of good managers in my career. I've probably played for 4 or 5 now, and they've all been really good, and he's right up there with them. He's got all the qualities. He keeps it even keel all year long, and I think he, like I said yesterday, a little bit blends the old school and new school, and he's willing to adapt and change and do different things, and I don't think he can ask for more.
So I hate to do this, but I guess I'm gonna take this stance, right? I think Rob Thompson made some kind of boneheaded decisions with the bullpen. He was playing the cards he was dealt. The bullpen pieces that he had available to him were provided by Dave Dombrowski. I will note that I think it was really stupid to go back to Kerkering in a high leverage situation, especially after it didn't work earlier in the series. I think that's fair. I don't really care if the guys like Thompson. Somebody has to do a very neutral analysis of whether or not he's the right guy going forward. But this is still tough. And by the way, the Kerkering thing is a very big blind spot because it really does feel like literally everyone knew Kerkering should not be in that situation, and yet he was. All right, let's go to JT. This is JT Real Muto, pending free agent. All these guys are getting questions about Rob Thompson. Real Muto is going to be a free agent. So the two guys we'd probably want to hear from about it were Kyle Schwarber, JT Real Muto, maybe Ranger Suarez, but here's JT. JT, you want to be a Philly?
Want to be back? Do you expect to be back?
I'm not here to talk about free agency. Don't ask that question right now.
Does it affect the way you feel with these guys right now, knowing that, unlike Nick, who's under contract, but it may be different for you?
And I'm thinking about losing a baseball game. That's what it feels like right now. The last thing I'm thinking about is next year. If you want to ask me about this series or my teammates, I understand that, but I haven't thought about next year yet.
Do you want to be
I'm actually going to tell you this. I think that this is a much better quote to hear than to read. I'm going to play this again.
back? Do you expect to be back?
I'm not here to talk about free agency. Don't ask that question right now.
If you check the body language and the facial expressions throughout this clip, I think he's especially pissed for a whole myriad of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I do not view that as JT Realmuto saying that he wants to leave. I also don't view it as him saying he wants to bend over backwards to be back. I think he's taking this very hard. And I think that's okay. That's what you want a competitor and somebody who's like a team leader. That's how you want them to react.
Yeah.
The question about, did it sound? I don't know. I couldn't tell if that was Marcus Hayes that asked the follow-up. I mean, you just hold on.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely Marcus Hayes.
Oh, boy.
All right. So here we're going to play the Marcus Hayes thing because, this will give you an idea of like what kind of goofy ass take Marcus Hayes is going to write tomorrow for the Philadelphia Inquirer at inquirer.com, not philly.com.
JT Realmuto is leaving Philadelphia.
Why JT Realmuto was selfish by not answering
My question.
whether he wanted to be back. All right, here you go. This is the Marcus Hayes question.
Does it affect the way you feel with these guys right now, knowing that, unlike Nick, who's under contract, but it may be different for you?
And I'm thinking about
So it's actually not the dumbest question, but it's a way to try to get the initial answer. So the first guy who asks about free agency, Realmuto was very pissed off about it, said, don't ask me that question. Marcus Hayes tries to kind of shoehorn in a similar question, asking if the way that he's reacting to the loss is impacted by knowing that he's not under contract, unlike Nick Castellanos. So he's trying to get the same answer, but trying to wedge it in a different way. That's a savvy veteran move.
losing a baseball game. That's what it feels like right now. The last thing I'm thinking about is next year. If you want to ask me about this series or my teammates, I understand that, but I haven't thought about next year yet.
Now, if you want to be a cynic, you could look at that and say, maybe he knows that this is it, and he really likes this team and he likes these guys, but he thought that this team should have gone farther. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. Now, let's get to the guy who, again, on this show, I am effectively absolving of a lot of blame, even though he ultimately is the one. The ball came out of his hand and past JT Realmuto, and the season ended. Here's the shitty thing, too. You know that there are going to be people who are going to say horrible things to Orion Kerkering. You know that if he has social media, people are going to send him horrible, horrible things. And I hope nobody does. But there are a lot of dumb losers in this world who will. Kerkering is the least of your concern, or should be probably the least of your concern.
I've seen people doing it the entire week. The Bryce and his kids, all that stuff. I've been seeing it all week.
People are losers. Here's Orion Kerkering post game. We'll try to break in and out of this, but let's go to Orion Kerkering. He's been a stand-up guy. Let's hear what he has to say about the final play that ended the season.
Shit off my foot. Just kind of, once that pressure got to me, I just thought it was a faster throw to JT, a little quicker throw than trying to cross body at the Bryce. So just a horse shit throw.
Yeah. Did you?
Okay, so he explained the rationale. He thought he could get a quicker throw to home plate to JT than to go crossbody to Harper, which means that even as he breaks it down after the fact, he doesn't think he really had a play at first base.
Bryce. So just a horse shit throw.
He called it a horseshit throw, so he's taking accountability.
Did you hear them telling you to go to first at all, or were you just in the moment? It wasn't even
just in the moment.
Yeah.
Can you see JT pointing in that moment, or is it just kind of looking up?
Just kind of looking up, just be ready to go.
I mean, a lot of guys that never do unique was one of the first ones there. Just what do the guys say to you in that moment?
Just keep your head up.
So for those who have a hard time hearing the reporter questions, they were asking about like what the teammates said to him after the play gets made.
Honest mistake, just it's baseball. Shit happens, and just keep your head up. You'll be good for a long time to come. It's not my fault. Just that opportunity to score. Just keep your head up.
Conversation with Rob too. What did he say? What does that say mean to you? Those guys pick you up so quick.
It means a lot. It shows they care a lot. Just means everything for sure.
You see he's getting emotional there. But that on a human level, it means something to him that his teammates didn't just throw him under the bus.
I'm sure a lot of guys in here have had moments early in their career that, they can kind of remember very vividly. How much do you think you can use this kind of in the off season to for good?
For sure. Yeah, the wall with a tennis ball for sure. But yeah, just kind of keep going with it. Hopefully it started a long career. Just keep back in my head of this really fucking sucks right now, but hopefully keep pushing and get over this hump. Keep pushing.
It's about as honest as you could have had. You feel bad for the guy. I do, at least. Like, he's still young. There are 2 times there that he reiterated that, like, one, his teammates told him, you're going to have a long career. And then you hear him talking about how, like, when he's going into the offseason, he's just got to keep telling himself that, he wants to have, he plans on having a long career.
I think Dave Roberts even had a quote about him too.
Dave Roberts, the
manager,
Dodgers manager.
Yep.
Do you have the quote?
I think, yeah, let me see. I just had it not that long ago. Kerkering.
Look at you go.
Here we go. Dodgers manager. It's brutal. Kerkering is stud. You definitely feel for the player. I'm obviously happy that we won, but yeah, he's had a heck of a year and he's a heck of a pitcher. No one wants to kind of bear that.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
Eagles officially lost, so the 0-3 nightmare is complete.
Oh, here you go. We got Rob Thompson addressing Orion Kerkering. Do you want to go out to Topper? Does anybody want to hear from Topper? Let's hear from Topper, because this might be the last time we hear from him as the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's hear what Lyndon B. Johnson's doppelganger has to say. I'm not saying that Rob Thompson is Lyndon B. Johnson, but I will point out that I've never seen them in the same room. Let's go out to Topper.
Just to keep his head up. He just got caught up in the moment a little bit. Coming down the stretch there, he pitched so well for us, and it's I feel for him because he's putting it all on his shoulders. But we win as a team, and we lose as a team.
All right, I have to take it down, obviously, because there was some footage there from a game. You know how YouTube loves that.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, if you could go in the locker room right now and have off-the-record conversations with this team, I really don't think that the majority of these players would be blaming Orion Kerkering for the loss. I think they all know that they lost this as a team.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think they all clearly understand it's top 3 guys. I think they understand they're the problem.
Yeah.
The past 3 years.
Yeah, it's brutal. Okay, well, unfortunately, for the second year in a row, I have come out to Las Vegas while the Phillies are playing in the playoffs. And I think this is the second year in a row that I have had to do a show from Las Vegas bemoaning the end of the Philadelphia Phillies season. Like, I'm actually going back right now to look at this time last year because the dates almost perfectly lined up. And I am 95% sure that I had to do an episode saying goodbye to the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's see. Episode that was Red October Begins. Sanchez Strong, walk-off winner. Phillies win game 2. That was on October 6th of last year. Reaction, Phillies blow it against the Mets on the 10th. That was it. Yep, they blew it against the Mets. I was wearing the La Colombe shirt. I almost put it on for this show. So we missed it by a day, guys. It was 1 day shy of last year when the Phillies got eliminated by the Mets. So this is bad. This is what happens.
The one bright side of this, and my
Is there
dad,
a bright side? There's a bright side?
My dad is going to be my dad's going to laugh at this because I think he said it in the comment section. I can go to the Flyers home opener because if the Phillies played in the NLCS, I was not going to the home opener. And my dad was like, oh, at least you can go there now. I'm like, okay.
Well, on a positive note, I don't have to carry the press row show now by myself for pre-games because now Anthony's not going to be out on the road covering the Phillies. You know, I actually do blame Sanfilippo because we were looking at our schedule because we're doing the radio show every Wednesday.
Isn't the first one this Wednesday?
It'll be the upcoming Wednesday. What's that, the 15th, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think it's the 15th. If I'm correct, I'm pretty sure
next Wednesday's 15th. Yep.
So we're going to be doing the radio show on Wednesdays at 6:00 at rotating Chickies and Pete's locations. And Anthony was looking at it and he said, Russ, I hate to say it, but between that and the press row show and I don't know how I'm going to do it all. I don't know how I'm going to juggle it. The Phillies are going to have, if the Phillies go to the World Series, like there's going to be a lot of games that I'm going to miss. There's going to be a lot of games that I'm going to have to, we're going to have to figure it out, Russ. I don't know what we're going to do. Well, guess what, Anthony? It's your fault. Phillies got eliminated. And now, because of Anthony Sanfilippo, the Philly season is over, and we have to get ready for the Philadelphia Flyers, who, by the way, didn't look terrible against the two-time Stanley Cup or defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. So Friday, I will try to do a show before I fly out of Vegas. We'll recap the Flyers game. We will recap how Dan Vladar looked. We will recap the Eagles' loss. And if we don't do the show on Friday, I'll do one on Monday where we can recap all of it. I think it actually, to some extent, I almost feel like it's better to wait until Monday and have a little bit more of a sample size of Flyers games before we really start diving in on the Flyers. But let me see. So Saturday, the Flyers are in Carolina, taking on the Hurricanes. And then Monday night is the home opener. Interesting.
I would assume Ersson plays on Saturday.
Maybe not. We'll see.
Unless Taka goes to Vladar again with how good he played.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Will we be there for the press row show on Monday? Who knows? We'll find out soon. And on that, it's time to end. Everybody have a great night. Thank you to all of you who tuned in on YouTube, Facebook, and X. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe on YouTube. That's really where it matters the most. If you like to listen to the podcast feed, that's totally fine as well. We love and appreciate you as well. Leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. You can, of course, also listen on Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. Big thank you to Video Guy Amadeo. Big thank you to each and every one of you. As JH says so beautifully, the pain is over. Hey, the Phillies can't hurt you anymore. The season is over. Talk to all of you very soon here on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because it's the name of the show. Talk to all of you very soon here on the Russ Joy Show. Have a great night, everybody.